Good morning. We are on chapter 2 of part 1, how to read the personality types of the people you care for. Okay, the first question. Our puppy is in here, sweet wily dog. So there'll be some tambourine playing and some noise. Thank you for being with me. I appreciate you. First question. Why don't I believe you really care for me? Different types of loving. Often, we cannot understand why the people we care for deeply aren't loving us the way we want to be loved. At times, because they are not behaving in what we consider to be a loving way. We even tell ourselves that they don't really love us. However, in recognizing how different their personality types are from ours, we realize that their view of what constitutes love and what constitutes their loving us may not be the same as what we believe constitutes love and how we want to be loved. Yet, their view and behavior are as much an integral part of their whole personality as ours is of our personality. Identifying the whole personality type of the people we care for is the most important and vital step of the first of the 3 R's. Read. An example of the fact that we all love differently according to our individual personality types, and how that difference can make a person feel painfully alone and isolated within a relationship is illustrated by the following true story. Helen and her husband Bob, both in their mid-40s, own and run a profitable hardware store in a small Midwestern town. Helen is a feeler, and Bob is a driver. They have been married for 25 years and have 1 child, a daughter named Patty. Helen's niggling sense of alienation and loneliness within her own family always stemmed from the fact that Patty seemed to have a much closer and more understanding relationship with her father than she ever had with Helen. She relates a typical example of this alienation that happened when Patty was about 3 years old. Bursting with exciting news, the child rushed into the store office and began telling it to her father, who was in the middle of a telephone conversation with a customer. Bob, putting his hand over the mouthpiece of the phone, shouted at her, "Quiet now! Go away!" Patty turned and skipped out of the office, not the least put out by being dismissed so summarily. Helen, who was also present at the time, watched the child go, astonished at her reaction. She herself, in her feeler way, even as an adult, would have been cut to the quick by such treatment. Had her own father shouted at her that way as a 3-year-old child, she would have dissolved into tears on the spot. Rushing out of the office after Patty, Helen caught up with her to comfort her and explained that her father was just busy. He wasn't really angry at her. But Patty did not need comforting. She wasn't upset at all. Later, when Helen asked Bob not to shout at the child like that, he looked at her in surprise and said, "Don't be silly. She knows I didn't mean anything by it." And obviously, Patty did know that. Incidents like this of Bob and Patty obviously knowing what each other meant, and Helen consistently not knowing or misinterpreting what they meant were repeated so often as Patty grew up that Helen began to feel she was the odd one out, on a completely different wavelength from her husband and daughter. Over and over, in incident after incident, she felt more and more like an outsider in her own family. She sensed this particularly if she happened to join in with her husband and daughter when they were deep in discussion, or playing a game, or simply kidding around. She felt she was intruding, and realized they both changed their approach to accommodate her. When she joined them, their conversation slowed down. They toned down their rapid-fire retorts and actually stopped cutting off the ends of each other's sentences the way they did when she wasn't involved. Even the way they played board games together became less aggressive and fiercely competitive when she joined in. Helen believed she was cramping their style when she was with them, and assumed they both regarded her as somehow superfluous. That word I don't like. So eventually she was reluctant to join in at all, because she obviously did not think the way they both did. Helen sometimes felt very alone and shut out. She noticed that Patty was always more comfortable dealing with situations the way Bob advised rather than any way she might suggest. She began to stop trusting her own judgment about what would and would not please them, and took to asking each of them what they thought the other's reaction would be to everything from presents to what to do on vacation. She couldn't help wondering if Patty really loved her father more than she loved her mother, and she couldn't, for the life of her, think what to do about it. Helen also felt that, being unable to establish the same closeness that Bob had, she had somehow failed to be there for her daughter. She believed she had not been a good mother, and felt deeply guilty about it. She assumed their rapport was something to do with bloodline or heredity, and that really she had to accept the fact that, however hard she might try, she could never be as close to her daughter as Bob was. Even though her family life was very happy overall, Helen frequently got a feeling of unease, that something was wrong or incomplete within the family circle. Being a feeler, she assumed it was her fault. But Helen, the feeler, kept all her nagging feelings of confusion, alienation, and guilt deeply hidden. She did not even discuss them with Bob, and she knew he would tell her they were unfounded and ridiculous. She certainly did not mention them to her daughter, and she didn't want Patty to feel she had failed her mother in any way. She just lived with them, bottled up inside her, and believed that was the way things would always be. Well, until she was introduced to the 3 R's. Excuse me. Wet my whistle. Alrighty. Then, in the read stage of the 3 R's, Helen identified both Bob and Patty as driver personality types. She suddenly saw how and why they both reacted to everything the same way as the other. She saw how they actually did think the same way. She, as a feeler, simply did not think the same way, and therefore she did not act or react the way they did. She couldn't, any more than they could think the way she did. There was no conspiracy to shut her out. Neither of them could help being the way they were any more than she could help being the way she was. Bob and Patty were, in fact, on the same wavelength, not out of perversity or intention or even thoughtlessness. They simply shared the same personality type. Helen said it was like suddenly seeing the light. Her sense of relief at knowing that there was nothing wrong with her was unbelievably liberating. Patty had never followed her suggestions on how to deal with things because she was unable to think and feel about things the way Helen did. Not because she thought her mother was less intelligent or less astute or less sensitive than her father. Her incredible rapport with Bob had been simply because they both thought the same way. Thinking about it in light of the characteristics of the driver type, Helen began to see that her daughter loved her in the only way her personality type allowed, which, while different from the way Helen expected and wanted to be loved, was just as deep and just as true a way of loving. She began to wonder what else she had simply assumed incorrectly about her daughter, her husband, and even herself. All right, the next question, or the next little section here. Page 33. No holds barred arguments. The emergence of the core personality type. Helen was aware that her husband and daughter altered or toned down their natural behavior when she joined them. They did it to make her feel more comfortable and include her within the family circle. Wiley, I can hear you. Are you okay? Are you fighting sleep? Make you sleepy? Do I make you sleepy? Okay, here we go. As social beings, we all modify our behavior to accommodate the people we care for, simply because we like being with them and want to be accepted by them. We become more thoughtful and considerate of their comfort and feelings, and we instinctively act and react in a way we know they find appealing and understandable. When we modify our behavior to suit them, we cloak or mask our true personality to some extent, while our real personality still shines through. It becomes toned down and less explicit. There is, however, one particular time when our personality type is not toned down or masked or camouflaged in any way. That is when we are under attack, and particularly under very personal verbal attack. What's going on, buddy? You okay? What's going on? Hey, something's not okay. What is it, friend? What is it? Are you alright? Well, I tried to let you out, and you took off down the middle of the road. Yes, you did. And I had to fetch you, and I told you they were hunting eagles. And you ran back and jumped in the van, and you didn't go potty. From my perspective, that is on you. The running off is on you. The not pottying is on you. And the running back and getting in the van is also on you. So we're just going to wait a minute. Okay? Do you feel seen? You can wait a minute. Alright. You're still my favorite dog. And I can see you smiling at me. I can see your tiny little teeth looking at me. Okay, we can wait. And lay your brown eyes. Okay. Sorry, I have my primary audience member is with me. I like to keep him happy. But I like it when we're both happy. How about that? He is currently less happy than he would have been had he not, as you heard my morning story, took off running. Nothing is as tasty as a silver dog running to an eagle. I assume, anyway. I mean, they know he's mine, but he's super cute. Alright, back to the book here. Me and my buddy have arranged things. Okay. And one type that's not toned down or masked or camouflaged in any way, and that is when we are under attack, and particularly under very personal, verbal attack. The classic example of this is a no-holds-barred argument or a family dispute. Stress hits us and we fight back. We react instinctively to protect ourselves and defeat our attacker. And we use whatever method works best for us. We do what comes naturally. What comes naturally to the surface then is our core personality. All the pure characteristics of our type emerge in sharp relief and at full strength. Our rawest behavior is on display. It is unavoidably obvious and very easy to read. Alright, look profiling, the next category. The personality types of the people you love. The following look profiling chart for rapidly identifying the personality types of the people you care for is based on recognizing the distinctive characteristics they display when they feel they are under attack in the middle of an intense argument. My cormorants are coming in. Oh, babies. Oh, we're in the right spot. All right, stay on track first. This identification technique is on a far more intimate, in-depth level than the last one for observing the controlled social behavior of people you are meeting for the first time. It draws on your own very private knowledge of how the person you are going to identify reacts when he or she is arguing with you. Again, this is not a self-identification technique. Do not try to identify your own personality type from this chart. The next chapter shows you how to identify your own type. To use this chart, first read each column separately, top to bottom, to get the overall picture of each personality type. Next, read across the columns to compare and contrast the distinctive way each personality type behaves when in conflict with another person. Alright, let's take a peek here. First of all, how many pages is there? 1, 2, 3. Good morning, my friends. 3 pages and they're all charts. Bummer. Alright, so here's the first one. Let's clean it up. I'm going to read these this way in case you want a screenshot of it. Read along. That's the first one. There's 3 of them. There's the second one. Oh, and then the third one. looks clear, my friends. You can always just hit pause, too. That's the last one. Alright, I'm going to read all these to us. Oh, my goodness. And the wind is, allergens. Oh, okay, here we go. Here I go. Run. Okay, look, profiling chart. Number 2, identifying personality types in conflict. A side note from Mimi is that not everybody lets you see. And I wonder if this would still, because this is an older information book, would still apply to the way people write things, like on social media and stuff. You know, we got a feeler, a driver, an analyzer, and an elitist. And how people write and post, and might be ways to see, even if it's not people that you're constantly interacting with, might be able to pick up and deal differently. I mean, I'm thrilled that there's only 4. I have a different kinds of books like this, so the fact that there's only 4 should make it easier for all of us to play along. And also then we'll have these, because I know people who identify as a driver, but I didn't actually know, like, this is helping me go, oh, that's what that means when they say that. All right, here we go. The demeanor or image that is presented by a feeler is emotionally involved, defensive of situation, slower reactions than other types, hates confrontation of any sort, doubts their own courage. And then the feeler, offensive, defensive, method of attack. On the feeler, with the feeler, it is primarily defensive, reacts rather than instigates. At start of stress, pulls into denial, overly serious, listens intently, tries to be patient, needs to know your position and reasoning before hitting back, may agree just to diffuse the argument. And the rest of that, their form of attack is they will not attack head on, usually attacks peripherally, stores up comments for counterattack rather than interjecting constantly, narrows down what you say to a few comments. The feelers' responses or emotional behaviors: totally emotionally involved, cannot handle emotional pain or any degree of anger aimed at him or her. If considered stress to be unfair, will fall to pieces. Dislikes theatrics, loudness, or anger, will shut down and withdraw into self. The intellectual part of a feeler. Their dominating mood is bargaining. Emotions distort the ability to think logically, if not approached in same mood or channel. What you say will not compute intellectually. Craves to be validated and credited for who he or she is. Sorry, it's allergy world out here. Okay, the physical side of a feeler, or the physical identifying character, personality, blah, blah, blah. Physical. Primary direction of eye movement is to the left. Body language, very pronounced, indicative of varying emotional state. Okay, that was the feeler. Now we go back to the driver, which is the one I've heard people talk about the most, actually. The demeanor or image that is presented by a driver, enthusiastically and dramatically involved, ready for the attack. Argument is a game to be won. Rapid reactions. Needs to control situation and you. All right, whether they choose offensive or defensive method of attack. The driver is eagerly offensive, wants complete and total directional control of argument, picks up what you are aiming at quickly, will focus on that part of your argument which shows weakness, uses anger as power over you. They have swings between extreme positions, rarely takes moderate position, is impatient when you talk, and interjects comments, talks too much, nitpicks your reasoning. And the next category of a driver is their emotional responses. They're excitable, overly dramatic and theatrical verbally, swings through moods rapidly, pulls into anger very quickly. All right, the intellectual responses of a driver. Their dominating mood is anger, rapid intellectual activity, makes up mind quickly on what has happened to cause the problem. They believe they're always right in stress situations. It's his or her way is the only correct way. You are stupid if you do not agree. They will lie verbally to prove a point. They use personal reasoning, unrelated to objective logic, to drive you to his or her way of thinking. And physical responses. Primary direction of eye movement is to the right. Body language is animated, dramatic, and theatrical, used to overemphasize points and to manipulate you. Alright, and the next category is the analyzer. And we start with the demeanor or the image that's presented by an analyzer. Analytical, calculating, emotionally uninvolved, detached from fault or guilt. The problem is yours, not his or hers. Underlying aggression. All right, their method of attack is calculatingly offensive, deadly serious, dogmatic. Their own reasoning and logic is crystal clear. If you can't see it as obviously, you are at fault. Shows no remorse, unless problem is one he or she has obviously caused. Then responds quickly to a slight, whether it is real or imagined. Subconsciously checks your comments. If does not consider them orderly and precise, they will tell you so. Wants to know why he or she is being asked or told to do something or answer a question. All right, the emotional responses of an analyzer. Views emotions as weakness to be exploited. Puzzled and put out by emotionality. The intellectual responses of an analyzer. Their dominating mood is denial. Pure intellectual response to stress. Controls own anger through logic. Feels he or she is in the eye of the hurricane, while others rage all around. And the physical responses, the primary direction of eye movement is to the right. Their body language is very controlled. They have latent aggression. Alright, and the final one of these four. The demeanor or image that is presented by an elitist. Superior. This is beneath me attitude. Someone, something else to blame for problem. Definitely not him or her. They have a dominating attitude. Alright, their method of attack. They're offensive when attacked. Challenges when threatened. Otherwise removed from the problem. Knows exactly what you're talking about, but does not understand or relate to your point. Has to dominate you and the situation. Always on guard against losing self-control. Talks too much about his or her own problems. Alright, the responses emotionally of an elitist. Appears emotionally restless. The responses intellectual of an elitist. The dominating mood is depression. Feels intellectually superior. Thinks about what may occur in relationship or what will occur as the result of argument. And the physical responses of elitist. Their primary direction of eye movement is to the right. Never does anything gross in conflict. May appear to be momentarily hypnotized. Has mental shut down. Alright, in the last paragraph here, my friends. Okay, then using this knowledge, identify the types of the particular individuals you have in mind. If there is still any doubt in your mind about which personality type the person you want to identify is, reread the chart carefully. A person cannot be a combination of types. Each individual is one type and one only. Remember, this chart works if you are identifying someone you care for and if you have been involved in a serious argument with that someone. If you are having difficulty recognizing a particular person, you may not care for him or her, or you may not have been involved in the sort of raw conflict that is required to bring out his or her pure personality traits. If this is the case, rely on the first look profiling chart to identify their type and read on with that type in mind to understand exactly who the individual really is, even though that person may not have fully revealed him or herself to you yet. Okay, I got one little special thing over here because it's like a little box. It says, while in the guise of ... In public, people have to wear the style of clothing dictated by the image demands of their job or peer groups. In private, however, they are free to wear not the uniform dictated by their occupations, superiors, or place in society, but whatever they feel most comfortable in and at home in. They wear the clothes that reflect their own personalities. Feelers favor warm, neutral, earthy, or subdued tones and styles that are not overly revealing of their presence, their opinions, or their bodies. They like to blend in. And the next one, drivers. They prefer bright or positive colors and sometimes unconventional, eye-catching styles that assert their individuality. Women drivers especially like to stand out in a crowd. And the next, analyzers. They like more conventional, functional, no-nonsense clothing. Their choice of what they wear always makes sense for the occasion. Whether relaxing, gardening, playing with the children, or doing an oil change on the car. Above all, they are logical in their choice of what to wear. And the final, elitists invariably demonstrate style, elegance, and perfect taste in even their most casual attire. Their choice may at times be somewhat idiosyncratic, but it is always indisputably appropriate. In any relationship, embryonic or long-term, if you're not sure you're seeing the real person, noting how they dress when they are casually being themselves offers a reliable way of identifying their personality type and seeing who they really are. And that is the end of that. Alright, we're on page 40. Let's see how far that goes. Let's see, there's going to be more charts. My words. Okay, so that chapter's 20 pages, so I'll make a different video for it. But we did it. We caught the sunrise together. Why does that look crooked? Oh my goodness, has that been crooked the whole time? Well, I mean, it's outside. Technically, outside is crooked, isn't it? Well, we did it again. I got to read a little more to you. Thank you for being with me. I appreciate you. I've been reading How Can I Get Through to You by D. Glenn Foster and Mary Marshall. And it's so that now when people are throwing around these terms in conversation, we'll know what they mean. Thanks for being with me. I appreciate you. Have a beautiful day.